Hello nerds and nerdettes, welcome back to the channel where once again we have a new video for you guys. This time we will be going over my top 5 one and done Marvel omnibuses for new readers that are trying to jump into the hobby. Before we jump into that list, I do want to remind you guys that if you're looking for any of the books I'm about to talk about or any of the books that have been featured on my channel, to use the channel sponsor, organicpricebooks.com. Use that discount code STAYNERDY for $2 off your order, as well as to help support the channel. Also, if you want to help support the channel even more so, hit that subscribe button. We're currently trying to hit our next milestone of 1K subscribers, so I'd be very thankful of that. But without further ado, let's go over some of the ground rules that I want to create for this list. First rule that I want to constrict myself to is I did not want to go over the price of $100. I think a lot of us that are first initially jumping into the collected editions game or even Marvel Comics typically do not want to blow the bank on a $125 omnibus or a multiple volume run on a title, so I want to keep myself to the $100 price tag. Rule number 2, I want to keep myself to the page count of below 1,000 pages. I want to make sure each of the books that I was recommending or talking about in today's video was going to be a little bit more digestible, because I know some of those thicker 1,000 to 1,500 page omnibuses can be a little bit daunting as far as content goes. So I want to keep them on the thinner side as well. And rule number 3 is I want to keep them as self-contained and as one and done as possible, so it's as new reader friendly as possible. But with all the rules out of the way, let's go ahead and jump to number 5 and start the list. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Spider-Man, or Adjectiveless Spider-Man, by Todd McFarlane, the omnibus. This does have a cover price of $75 and a page count of 440 pages. This is somewhat readily available on the aftermarket for fairly decent prices, but if you didn't want to go through the aftermarket, this book has been reprinted probably a million times at this point, so it will be reprinted again at some point as well. But I put this in at number 5 because it is fairly self-contained, really only involving Spider-Man and the story that you are reading. There is slight involvement with some Marvel characters, but again, the involvement of the characters doesn't necessarily involve anything to do with those characters' lore or any of the stories that those other characters may be going through in their own title at hand. So I think it is very new reader friendly. I think you can essentially open it up blind and start reading. I think Todd McFarlane is very art forward as far as his storytelling goes. You're not looking at anything very lore heavy or even highbrow. You're just kind of looking at fun Spider-Man stories with absolutely beautiful art throughout. There is a X Factor crossover issue, I believe, included, but again, that story you could pretty much skip over. It doesn't have a whole lot to do with the omnibus or the story that is contained in the omnibus, but the most of the stories, you're going to have Spider-Man stories with beautiful art, little to no involvement with other characters, which is always a plus for new readers. And you're also going to have some of the most beautiful Spider-Man art that's really ever been drawn at Marvel Comics, in my opinion, at least. So definitely great for new readers, definitely a one and done. There is no other omnibus at this point collecting any more of this title. It is 100% done, at least with Todd McFarlane's tenure on the title, wrapping up with this omnibus, so you get the entire story that he was trying to tell, at least during this time period. So that's exactly why it's at number 5. I highly recommend this run as well. I'm a huge fan of Todd McFarlane. A lot of you guys probably may have heard of him, the creator of Spawn, writer of Spawn, and I think it's great for new readers because of just how not dense it is. It's not dense in lore, it's not dense in story. You just open it up and start reading. But that does wrap up number 5, so we'll head to number 4. And number 4 is going to be Doctor Strange by Jason Aaron and Chris Bachalo, the omnibus. This is also on the thinner side. We have a page count of also $75 or a price tag of also $75 and a page count of 575 pages. Super great story. This is my second favorite run on Doctor Strange. I am Admittedly, not a huge fan of the mystic realm of Marvel that Doctor Strange kind of exists in, but this is as light as possible, or as light on the mystical elements as a Doctor Strange could possibly be, if that makes sense. You do have, obviously, a lot of the mystical realm still being explored and kind of dipped into here and there, but it is not as ingrained in the entire story as some of his other titles, such as Sorcerer Supreme or any of his other omnibuses, which I only think is Sorcerer Supreme. This is a one and done omnibus as well, so this omnibus completes the story. You have a beginning, middle, and end that Jason Aaron, or the story that Jason Aaron was trying to tell. You also have absolutely beautiful and obscure and abstract art from Chris Bachalo as well. So very art forward. Also, just a story in general that puts Doctor Strange a little bit out of his element and in a different story that you've never really seen him in, not even in the MCU movies. So it is a little bit of a breath of fresh air for the character as well. This omnibus is fairly still obtainable or in stock at most places, so it shouldn't be that hard to get your hands on. And with a price tag of $75, you're going to typically, as I kind of mentioned, get it for a lower price than what the cover price actually is. So it's a great way to kind of dip your toe into Doctor Strange. It doesn't have a high page count, and it is not extremely lore heavy like some of the mystical realm at Marvel can be. So great for new readers, great one and done omnibus, and you read this omnibus and you get the entire story. So it's a great way to kind of dip your toe into the character of Doctor Strange. But that does wrap up number 4, so we'll go ahead and jump to number 3. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Hawkeye by Fraction and Aha Omnibus. This is currently out of print, but we already have an announcement of a reprint. So if you are interested in this book, just give it some time. It is going to be reprinted very soon. We do have a cover price of $100 and a page count of 552 pages. Once again, a very self-contained story. You're going to have little to no involvement with the outside Marvel world. This is very much focused on the character of Hawkeye and Kate Bishop in their kind of world in New York, doing their own thing, not necessarily involving any other stories that are taking place in Marvel at this time. You are going to have very interesting art by David Aja, as well as a very interesting color palette as well. This is a extremely grounded take, even for a character like Hawkeye, which is also a breath of fresh air as well for especially new readers that maybe can't wrap their head or don't want to wrap their head around necessarily superheroes, people flying through the sky or lifting planets, whatever it may be. This is a great starting point for comics in general, and especially Hawkeye. You don't really need a whole lot of knowledge of the character of Hawkeye jumping into this omnibus. A lot of the need-to-know details do get explored throughout the omnibus, so you can kind of rest assured that you're getting everything that you need through the pages of the omnibus itself. It does have a beginning, middle, and end to the story that Matt Fraction was telling during this time period on the Hawkeye title, and it is extremely well done. This is the inspiration for the Hawkeye Disney Plus show as well, so if you were a fan of that, then obviously this would be a great title to pick up, because it's similar but different in a lot of ways, but it is a very well and very high acclaimed story on the character of Hawkeye in Marvel Comics in general. But it's great for new readers because of the lack of involvement with the Marvel world, as well as the lack of involvement with the Marvel lore or the Hawkeye lore in general. So definitely check it out if you're a fan of Hawkeye, but that does wrap up number 3, so we'll jump to number 2. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and Alred Omnibus. This does have a cover price of $100 and a page count of 688 pages. Once again, a decently digestible size. This was just recently reprinted, so it is readily available out there on the interwebs, if you will, and it is a great story as well as jumping on point. Once again, little to no involvement with a lot of the Marvel world, and little to no involvement with the massive cosmic side of Marvel. You're going to have definitely Silver Surfer, Galactus, some of those cosmic characters, cosmic entities having a hand to play, but when you really jump into comics and learn how massive the cosmic side of Marvel is, this feels like quite literally a puddle compared to a pool. And that honestly is extremely digestible and new reader friendly as well. You're going to be getting a lot of beautiful art by Alred throughout the pages as well. And you're also going to get a decent amount of genre mix-ups throughout as well. Not to mention the cosmic adventuring style of storytelling, but you're also going to get a little bit of romance. And that's just to kind of touch on the genres that are at hand throughout this book. It is great for new readers. I typically recommend this to a lot of people that are initially jumping into Marvel just because of how self-contained the story overall kind of feels. And it also gives you a lot of backstory and a lot of learning moments to the character of Silver Surfer. He already has a fairly obscure or dotted history through Marvel Comics, not having a whole lot of focus or runs throughout. The only kind of reputable one is really by Jack Kirby. But this is a great read for new readers that want to get into Silver Surfer or maybe want to dip their toes in the cosmic world of Marvel as well. This is a nice little, like I keep kind of referencing, toe dip into that world and that character. And it's also probably one of the best runs in Marvel Comics ever, as not to mention the art by Alred as well. So that's exactly why it's at number 2. The only reason I didn't put this at number 1 is because of the popularity of Silver Surfer isn't there comparatively to the number 1, but it is absolutely an amazing story, and I can't recommend it enough. But let's head to number 1. And coming in at number 1 is going to be Astonishing XMen by Joss Whedon and John Cassaday. Definitely a whammy of a title. Such a great read. We do have a cover price of $100 and a page count of 672 pages. Once again, fairly digestible as far as its page count. This is not as readily available, but on the aftermarket it is. So again, you kind of have to navigate the aftermarket if it's something you want immediately. But this has been reprinted before. Marvel is very good at reprinting books, so it's definitely something you could be a little bit patient for and probably get for below cover price at places like Organic Price Books. But this is a great kind of jumping on point for the characters of X-Men. Huge juggernaut title in the comic community, especially for Marvel. A lot of people are fans of X-Men in general, and I think this is a great jumping on point. There's a massive history involving the characters throughout Marvel Comics, which this one does, or this run does slightly dabble in a little bit, as well as slightly dabbling in some of the outside of the X-Men Marvel world. So this isn't as new reader friendly, but at the same time, I think if you grab it and just start reading, you're going to be still very impressed with the story. It has beautifully, just amazing art throughout. A lot of people say some of the best art on X-Men in general, which I would probably agree with as well. It is very well illustrated throughout, but also it is very digestible and a great jumping on point for such a lore and history heavy team like X-Men, which is rare to come by. You are going to, like I said, still have some involvement with the Marvel Universe, but it's as little as possible for such a lore and history heavy team like X-Men. So great pickup for anybody that wants to get into X-Men and doesn't necessarily know where to start. I'd probably say Astonishing X-Men or New X-Men would be great if you didn't want to start at the very beginning or anything like that. It's borderline impossible to find a X-Men title that has absolutely nothing to do with prior X-Men events, just because they are that lore heavy, but this is probably as close as you can get. And the main reason that this book is at number 1 is because I feel like most people that do want to jump into Marvel Comics typically get very intrigued by the X-Men team, and that's kind of where they want to start. But maybe you don't want to pick up the 5 volumes of Uncanny X-Men, or you don't want to go back in time and start with the older kind of Silver Age style of storytelling, and you want to start more modern, this is the book you're going to want to pick up to kind of get a good taste for the characters, the world, the mutant world, if you will, and that's exactly why it's at #1. But that does wrap up today's video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I obviously did not cover every single one and done omnibus. I was held pretty tightly by the rules that I made for myself, but I am happy I did that because I understand that omnibuses, comics, everything that's kind of involved in that world can be very daunting and intimidating for new readers. So I want to keep it as thin and self-contained as possible with all of these books. If you guys can think of any others to add to the list, comment down below. I would love to hear from you guys. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up icon. And of course, stay nerdy.